when they're running in big races, I'm more nervous watching them run than I ever was playing football.
Saying that to your teammates though, where you were off to?
I was sick.
Of course. Yeah.
This could be one of the races of the whole meeting, couldn't it? Obviously, the Queen herself, Honeysuckle, will have probably 99% of Leopardstown rooting for her on that occasion.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill, where this week we will be reviewing the weekend that was with top class and fascinating action at Cheltenham, Doncaster and Fairyhouse. We'll be looking ahead to the Ryanair Chase as our anti-post race in focus ahead of the Cheltenham Festival, and we will be looking at even more interesting action as we have a plethora of top-notch talent on display at the Dublin Racing Festival at Leopardstown this weekend, as well as we might just try and sneak in a brief look at Sandown as well, not to be outdone, has its own top class action. I'll be analysing all of this racing in the company of James Mackie and Will Smith. But first and foremost, we have a very special guest joining us, especially because James Mackie and I, lifelong Liverpool fans, not that our accents necessarily suggest that, don't ask us, but I'm delighted to say that we are being joined by the one and only footballing legend, Glen Johnson, this week. So Glen, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me. You all right?
Yeah, really good. No, we're even better now. We're trying to keep it cool. We're trying to play this cool, aren't we, James? We're simping away, but anyway.
Big style. Yeah, I'm a massive Liverpool fan. So when I knew obviously you were coming on, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say as well. So yeah, looking forward to this one.
No, exactly. We really are, aren't we? Cannot wait for this. So thank you so much for joining us, though, Glen. And of course, as I say, you are our guest in focus, and this is a horse racing show. So we always try and acknowledge as much racing as we possibly can throughout this. You have many strong connections to racing. So first and foremost, I mean, how did you get into racing?
Mainly it's just, I don't think anyone that's not even into racing, you always appreciate how beautiful the animals look and, and how well they're looked after and things like that. So I think it was more about just being fascinated with the animals themselves. And then obviously then comes the days at the racing where, you haven't got to be an expert to enjoy a day out. You can appreciate the racing, have some good fun with young people, old people. And I think it just brings everyone together.
It does, doesn't it? Exactly. Like you say, it's universal. It's a sport that is there for absolutely everyone. But you have far more involvement than just a fan, though, because you have quite a strong connection to a stud. So would you like to explain to us more about that?
I'm quite big into flat racing. Over the years, done some breeding, owned a few mares, quite a few runners with a few of some funny names, some stories, some bad stories. But yeah, overall, it all started from the love of the fun of the day out, and then finally made the plunge to dip my toe into the owner's side. Then things start to change slightly, but ultimately still love the sport.
You started to hint then about the funny names of the horses that you owned, and we can't let you go without explaining further about that, please.
Well, yeah, there's been a few. So I'm massive into owning horses, like most people. So we've named a few horses from the back of that, to be fair, like just funny quotes. And we've had one called Drink Up Trig. We've had one called Derek Duval. We had Use Your Filbert. So unfortunately, they all didn't turn out to be great horses, but ultimately had loads of fun day out of racing with them. And yeah, it's always fun to hear the commentators bring them down at the final furlong.
Yeah, and we can fully blame you now. Absolutely outed yourself for those names. But like you say, even if they're not good horses, they have winning names all the same. Absolutely. Now, of course, we know your background with all of the teams that you have played for, but one team that probably had a stronger racing connection than any others, Portsmouth, obviously with Harry Redknapp then at the helm during that time. So You must have had a whole load of racing discussions with him and your other teammates as well. So do you have sort of any memories with him that stand out and broadcastable?
Yes and yes. I'd say, many chats with Harry. Bumped into him when we didn't work together, just at the racetrack numerous times. He's certainly a man that loves it, and he's more into jumps than flats. But yeah, we've had great fun over the years. But the one that probably stands out was we had a game at home on a Saturday, and he allowed me to have a Thursday off, so 2 days before a game, to go to Cheltenham, which is pretty unheard of, but it sums the man up. He just wants you to be happy. And anyway, so I took the Thursday off, went to Cheltenham, He was texting me a few tips throughout the day, which were useless, but he was still trying.
Of course.
And then to top the story off, we played really well on the Saturday and won 2-0. So it's job done.
No one noticed any difference whatsoever. How did you explain that to your teammates, though, where you were off to?
I was sick.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely nothing for social media getting put up on the back of that. Anyway, well, there was nothing to celebrate on Winners to be putting up on social media. Thanks to Harry's tips, I guess. Anyway, now you said about Harry being more jump orientated and you were more flat. Would you ever be tempted to get any jump horses?
I would, just purely for the fun of it. But to be honest, I don't know much about it. I know it's horse racing, but to me, it's a different sport. In terms of the ages of the horse, it's obviously the tracks, the style of running and whatever. So I would like to do it just for the fun of it, but I wouldn't try to master it or certainly know what I know on the flats, if you know what I mean.
So you're going to stick to that and expand your flat string? Are you looking to get any more?
Yeah, we're always looking. Like I say, we probably breed 3 or 4 a year. So we're still active. Probably more active now than ever, to be honest. But more with the breeding side than buying horses out of training.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. The more breeding side, probably, I guess, does it feel more kind of fulfilling when you do it that way around? Yeah,
it's mad because literally you treat them like family. And there's nothing better having a winner on the track that you've bred. And we've been lucky enough to have it where we've bred somewhere we owned this, a bit of the stallion as well as the mare. So it's super interesting. And the mad thing about it is when they're running in big races, I'm more nervous watching them run than I ever was playing football. It's mad because it's because it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
In a football match, I can be effective and I can have an input or I can do something about it. But when you know how hard it is to get a horse on a racetrack. It's weeks and weeks and months of practice and training and scoping clean and everything ticking a box at the right time and whatever. So it's now it comes down to potentially a 1 minute 55 second sprint and they could lose it in the first furlong.
Yep. Now you know how your family felt when you were playing. This is exactly with the out of control feeling. You're now getting to relive that. So yeah, it's all a full circle in this game. Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions about your ex-teammates. So no thinking about this, just whatever comes to mind first. Of course, going to have some proper fun with this one. So firstly, 3 ex-teammates you would take to Cheltenham and 3 you definitely wouldn't take.
3 I would take. Scotty Parker, Crouchy, and Sidwell.
Oh, okay. All good company, I'd imagine. Yes, we
good
like
lads.
That. Those 3.
Like a Guinness. Yeah, like the horses.
Exactly. 3 you wouldn't take.
I would take JMO.
Who's JMO?
David James, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't take Herman Haridason.
Okay.
And I wouldn't take, I wouldn't take probably Jose Enrique.
Oh, why?
Jose Enrique, because of his dress sense, he'd stand out like sore thumb. JMO and Haridason are just nut jobs. So there might be a little bit too much attention.
And Glen, sorry, Kate. Glen, just asking about Peter Crouch. What's he been like to go out to the races with? Because obviously we've seen him everywhere on his podcast, on TV, and obviously as a footballer. But what's he like on a day out? Because he's got some stories, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's just a genuine good lad. Good fun to go anywhere with. But like I say, certainly at the racetracks, when you have them big days, everyone makes an effort, don't they, in terms of clearing the diary, shall we say. So yeah, he's always up for a laugh, and yeah, he's always good fun to be around.
I knew that this section was just going to keep giving us some gold. So best football player you've ever played with or played against?
That's a tough one. I was lucky enough to play in teams like Liverpool, Chelsea, where we had the best players worldwide for a long time, so across a period of time. So it's hard to, a lot of players are good at different things. But if I had to pick the sort of general good player, it'd be Steven Gerrard. I played with players that are sort of, I don't know, maybe better defensively or maybe better in front of goal, so to speak. But overall, the man can do everything. And there's not many other players that can do that.
Exactly. No, definitely. We are here for Stevie G. I was hoping you were going to say that. Fashion obviously plays a huge part in racing. Now, you may have just outed this, but who would be the best and worst dressed?
Best dressed would probably be maybe like Alberto Aquilani.
Okay.
Or Scott Parker. Always dressed quite smart. But like you said, worst dressed is without doubt Enrique. Just oblivious.
Wow. What a statement.
Great lad, by the way. I don't want to keep digging him out, but I'm only saying this because I've told him to his face as well.
This isn't just he's gonna find this out through behind.
No, he already knows.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Which former teammate would be the best jockey and who would be the worst?
I would say Pepe Reina would be the worst.
Oh, why?
It was just way too much. I don't think the horse would enjoy that one. But best would have to be Joe Allen or Leon Britton.
Okay, yeah, we'll take
Leon
that.
Britton or Joe Allen.
I feel like I need to defend Pepe Reina. I thought with his Grobbelaar-esque knees, I thought he would be great for balancing on the back of a horse. But anyway, we counted him again now. Would you rather have won the Champions League as a footballer or owned the winner of the Gold Cup or the Derby as an owner?
I have to go Champions League, just purely because it's your bread and butter, and it's the pinnacle of the sport that we're involved in. But blimey, I'd love to win the Derby for sure. But yeah, if I could only pick one, I'd go Champions League.
Okay, that's completely fair, to be honest. And last and final question, and something that no one else would know about you.
Oh God. There's probably quite a few things.
Again,
I don't know. To be fair, it probably is how passionate I am about the racing, to be honest. There's not many people that really know. There's the odd fans, like there'd be times when we come out for the second half and a fan would be telling me how my horse got on or whatever and things like that. So, but not many people would know. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd probably say for how long and involved I am with racing, I guess.
That is a very good one, especially for this show. Well played. Well, that is everything from us then. Thank you so much, Glen, for your time, your company. James and I are obviously a massive privilege to be interviewing you on this show. So best of luck with everything going forwards. Best of luck with the racing side of it. And hopefully we'll see you on a race course before too long. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Glen. Right, it's time to review the weekend that was, and I'm so pleased that we are being joined this week by none other than William Hill Racing Radio contributor, as well as ex-professional cricketer Will Smith. So, Will, great to have you on board. Thank you so much for joining us, for all of your insight here. But just for those who maybe don't listen to the radio, don't quite know your background, of course, I just said you were a cricketer, now a racing expert. So just exactly how have you managed to create that transition? Yeah, I like the way that you ordered that, Kate. First and foremost, cricketer, and then horse racing expert, which is very kind of you to say as well. So I've always loved my racing. It's always been incredibly close to my heart. My dad grew up on it. He got me into it from a young age. So it seemed fairly natural that I followed it throughout what was a fairly long and lucky cricket career. And then as soon as cricket finished, I thought, well, I've got to do something here, haven't I? I've got to work in the real world. So I took to the airwaves, thankfully, with William Hill, and they've given me some great opportunities, and thoroughly enjoy my racing, thoroughly enjoy working with William Hill, and long may it continue. If one sport, being at the top of your game for one sport wasn't enough, you have to go and make it to two. So we can all try and aspire to being as talented as that in multiple different facets. Now, Will, I am going to start with you for our review section of this, please, because, of course, we did have a very entertaining, if not slightly confusing in parts, weekend of racing at Cheltenham. So first and foremost, the Clarence House Chase, your takeaways, please. Yeah, fascinating renewal, wasn't it? And I think, like many races, like you said, this weekend, and many races that will have had results and effects on Cheltenham anti-post markets, it just seems to have muddied the waters so much more, doesn't it? And I think with the Clarence House, obviously everyone expected Energumene to turn up and win. It was a tick in the box exercise, and he'd move on to March to Cheltenham and probably be a similar kind of odds on price. But a step forward editor, De Jeep, and Noel Houlihan, Gary Moore, great story. This horse has improved no end. His run style is very much suited, isn't it, to the Cheltenham
new course, and he got away with it, and he went out from the front. And I think Niall Houlihan was brilliant in terms of the pace that he set when he slowed things up, when he quickened again. And it was noticeable that all 4 races on the chase track at Cheltenham on Saturday, the winners were essentially prominent on the inside for pretty much the most part of all those races. So he might have been slightly flattered. Now, forgive me for saying this, and people will probably throw things at the TV. You've got to get out and jump and go, haven't you? And that'll be similar in a champion chase. So he's put his hat into the ring, but I do think the naysayers sort of in me would suggest that Edwardstone and Energumene will probably get, Edwardstone was close enough, but he'll probably get a lot closer to him come March. And Energumene especially, I think, will, if it had jumped the last cleaner, then he'd have been right in the mix as well, wouldn't he? So it's, it's livened up the champion chase, if nothing else. So, and it was a fascinating spectacle.
It has, exactly. And I just really hope that Energumene, that was an off day for him more so than anything else. Now, James, we also did have a surprise winner of the Cleve Hurdle. Now, your thoughts on that race? Yeah, it was a big shock, and maybe even though Editor de Gite was a massive shock, I think this was probably just as big, wasn't it? Obviously, me, myself, I think everyone probably watching the racing at the weekend wanted Paisley Park to go and win his 4th Cleve Hurdle. It wasn't to be. For me, I've never seen Paisley Park actually travel into a race like he did. I thought he was the best he's ever travelled. He didn't even hit that flat spot. He just didn't pick up as he usually did. Look, you've got to talk about the winner. Obviously, it was a shock. But if you look through his career, he's been frequently raced in France, but not at 3 miles. This was his first try at 3 miles, and look what happens. And for me, I could pick him out as the winner a long way out, because he was travelling beautifully. He came on the outside of Dashiell Drasher. And if you look at Dashiell Drasher's form, compared over fences and hurdles, it's much better over fences, isn't it? So when he swooped past, and he's got to be supplemented for the stayers. He's not even in the stayers, so I don't know if even Connections thought that was going to happen. William Hill have put him in the stayers market 8-1 at the moment. Look, I would like to think there is better horses in that stayers hurdle, even though it's not the greatest renewal at this stage. Then Gold Tweet, taking nothing away from the winner because it was a good performance, but I don't think Gold Tweet would go and win in the stayers. In my view, like I said, with Paisley Park, travelled beautifully. And I think it was more my heart than my head that I wanted him to win, because it just didn't happen on the day, and I don't think he'll probably go and win now. But for me, the one big takeaway was the overall lack of depth in the stayers division from the British, because I was going through the market for the stayers after this, and I'm looking near the top of the market. You've got Irish, French. You got one English, which is Marie's Rock, that's favourite for the mare's hurdle, and then you've got Irish. So, and the next one along is English, is Buzz, who hasn't been seen for over a year. So for me, it just showed the lack of English presence in the stayers market. Oh, and Will, I'll go back to you, please, for the Cotswold Chase, won by the law unto his own, Ahoy Senor. Now, what do we make of this result? Is he a live, likely Gold Cup contender on the back of this?
Yeah, I think he has to be now. Yeah, he's almost like coming into the race. Actually, after the race, watching the interview with Lucinda Russell, which was poignant nonetheless. Obviously, she lost her father in the week, so it was a great result emotionally as well. And that was brilliant to see. And she clearly has so much love and faith and just a real affinity with this horse. She thinks he is just a monster. And that was the word she kept using, monster. And he really is. The ability he has is off the scale. It's just, he's a bit like a teenager, a 15, 16-year-old who you just want to shake and say, look, just grow up a bit, just figure out what you need to do and you could reach the very, very top. And I think this year had been a bit of a culture shock for him initially, some of those better races and obviously the King George, but he's just maybe starting to learn now. And I think what he did on Saturday was another big step up, wasn't it? And Derek Fox, I thought, was brilliant because he tried to go out and make it. And then I think it was the fourth fence where he was a little bit slow and out to his right, which he can do. And Bryony Frost on Frodon nipped up the inside and grasped the nettle on the front end, but he didn't panic. He had the faith in the horse. He kept him underneath him. And the run he made as he swung into the home straight there and collared Sounds Russian was pretty striking and pretty notable. So he's thrown his hat right into the ring, as has Sounds Russian. That was a massive run, I thought, from him. But Noble Yates was the one that caught the eye, wasn't he? The way that he ran on into third. I think, he, in terms of Gold Cup trials, obviously the Gold Cup will be an extra furlong as well, perhaps slightly better ground. The cheek pieces haven't been on him this season. He, of course, won the Grand National in them. And you'd imagine that Emmett Mullins will be making sure they go on the lorry to the Gold Cup on that Friday in March, because they'll be on. And I think he'll probably be the one out of the Cotswold Chase that we take out of that. Quite where that fits in with all the others and Galopin des Champs, etc., remains to be seen. But he was the one that I took out of it for the Gold Cup for sure.
Yeah, that was our review section anyway, from just some of the key races of Cheltenham, but lots of food for thought anyway from the lads there, and potential takeouts and how we've kind of analysed some of those slightly quirky races that we saw at the weekend anyway. Now, our anti-post race in focus this week for the Cheltenham Festival is the Ryanair Chase, so it's one of the big ones. And the market with us here at William Hill with non-runner money back currently reads as follows, because we have the dual winner of this race, Allaho, still leading the way as a 4-5 favourite, but Galopin des Champs, who's actually priced up as the same now. Blue Lord is a 3-1 shot. Fakir Dudery at 6-1. Shishkin also at 6s. Conflated 7-1. The same price about Statler. Pick Dory is 12 and it's 16-12. So, well, I've just wrote down the list, which of those is even running basically at this stage? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a really tricky market to weigh up, because obviously the Allaho factor in there. If he turns up on the day, he'll probably a similar kind of price. He probably won't have a run beforehand, which would be a massive doubt for me. He's a horse who's a big stuffy type, isn't he? Who generally in the autumn, he always takes a run or two to get ready. Now, Willie Mullins being Willie Mullins, if he has to go to Cheltenham without a run, it's probably not too much of a negative, in that he can get him fit and it's Cheltenham. You know, he's not going to want to build towards it. He will be 100% ready. But I mean, in terms of the doubts, you have to try and look elsewhere, don't you, in terms of that particular market. At this minute, Blue Lord is probably an interesting one, because he'll run at the Dublin Racing Festival over 2 miles. I would imagine what's happened at the weekend with Energumene and the Clarence House Chase, that has maybe just enhanced his chances of going for the Ryanair, but I'd still think they'd probably prefer the Champion Chase for him. So the one that I thought, if you were to have a bet right now at the current prices, non-runner money back, it has to be Shishkin. It has to be for me at 6-1, non-runner money back. I think we know he's got the ability. That's clear. Horses that, I mean, you think of Sprinter Sacra, horses that have that superior level of ability. They might have had 1 or 2 knocks for various reasons. They divide opinion very quickly, don't they? And I think Shishkin there's been a lot of negatives around his health and his well-being, etc., etc. But I thought he ran well enough at Sandown to suggest that the fires still burn a little bit. And I think Nicky Henson found some kind of wind issue as well after that. So if he runs well in the Ascot Chase in back end of February, I think it is, that 6-1 could be a distant memory, couldn't it? He's obviously got the Gold Cup entry. He could be supplemented for the Champion Chase. Who knows? But non-runner money back, that's where it comes in. You know, 6-1 about a horse of Shishkin's innate ability. That has to be the play for me right now.
And we talk about non-runner money back and utilising that to your advantage. And of course, William Hill, the leaders in that, really very much on the forefront of going non-runner money back as the industry's first. A good case made for Shishkin, currently a 6-1 price by Will. I'm almost convinced there, James. So who are you siding with?
Yeah, like Will said, it's a very, very tricky market, isn't it, at this stage? And luckily, we do have that non-runner money back, so you can have a go at the race, really, because a lot of these horses aren't going to turn up, are they? I'm similar to Will in the sense that with Allaho, I absolutely love Allaho. Honestly, I think he's up there with Paisley Park with one of my favourite horses, because I just love how he's come along throughout his career. If you look what he's done at Cheltenham, he was 3rd in the Albert Bartlett, 3rd in the RSA, and then obviously has won the last 2 renewals of the Ryanair. He's still a doubt to go to the festival. He's a doubt going to the festival without a run. Willie Mullins is the trainer that you want on your side if he's going to send a horse to Cheltenham without a run, obviously shown before in the past with the horses like Quevega and stuff like that. But I don't think Allaho will have to be anywhere near his best to win this race. So for me, it's very hard to back him. I do think if he goes, he wins the race. But if I was going to play this from an angle of trying to get the best value out of the race, the one I looked at was French Dynamite at around 20-1. And the reason was because when I went through the race, obviously we looked through, Blue Lord will probably win at the Dublin Race Festival, be probably favourite for the Champion Chase. I think when they ran him in the Clonmel Oil, they probably thought we'll go down the Ryanair version, but didn't run his best race, gone over 2 mile again, has been brilliant. So he won't turn up. Galopin des Champs favourite for the Gold Cup. You would like to think he wouldn't turn up. Fakir Duderies, we talked about him on last week's show. I think he's absolutely solid from an each-way perspective. He goes for the race, but I think they'll skip this and go to Aintree looking for the hat-trick. So I don't think he'll go. Horton Colours needs to be entered for the race, but ran well before falling, has fell a few times. I understand your point, Will, with Shishkin. I absolutely love the horse, but because of his dip in form and what he's shown, it's very hard to back him, isn't it? And I understand he's miles better than these horses on his best form, but it's just whether he ever rekindles that. And maybe for me, I was looking between Shishkin at 6-1 and French Dynamite at 20-1 that I just want to take a bigger price. It was just off the horses that weren't running and what a little bit of value. I don't think French Dynamite will win. I don't think it's good enough horse to win, but I think to hit the frame, definitely he's got a big chance. Look, second at Cheltenham in that Paddy Power handicap chase when giving £6 to Garlaw. Garlaw was obviously running a brilliant race in the Sky Bet handicap chase at the weekend before falling. Probably wouldn't have won, but would have finished second off top weight, which is another solid run. And obviously behind Fakir Dudary's last time, obviously Horton Colours fell. But I just thought off the back of those two runs with horses going elsewhere, I thought at 20-1 he could hit the frame, and I just had a little punt, a bigger price.
Like it a lot. Bigger price, good case made. Now we're going to look ahead to the nearer future with this weekend's action where we have mouth-watering clashes left, right and centre at the Dublin Racing Festival at Leopardstown end of the weekend. Hopefully the ground stays okay from what I saw on Twitter this morning, where they're going to be watering the whole week, but a dry forecast. Of course, we know the controversies about the Leopardstown turf for this fixture in the past. So I really hope that the ground is just proper, decent, everyone's ground, universal ground then for everyone come the weekend. But we do have plenty of races to look forward to. So I'm going to kickstart with Will there with the Irish Gold Cup, one of the main races, of course, of the entire week. So your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously it'll be one of the first Grade Ones on the chase track as well. As you mentioned, the ground will be all important there. And they're very mindful of that Leopardstown, aren't they? At Christmas, they were very mindful of it. They produce safe ground. And the chase track is always the one that they're most wary about, and I'm sure they'll make sure it will be fine. You know, we don't want any more repeats of what we had a couple of seasons ago. And I think if it was, you know, to just normal, safe, decent ground, then Galopin Des Champs is going to be incredibly hard to beat, isn't he? I mean, he's what he did last time out on his seasonal debut, there was just an element to it that was different to what we'd seen last season. In that we saw brilliance last season, we saw pace, we saw his attacking of fences, whereas this year, that first run, Paul Towner was able to just settle him, grab hold of him, and just say, right, let's just, you know, do things at our own speed here. Let's make sure we do things at the right time. You know, jump economically, but not as spectacularly as he has done last year. And he just looks like he is a model of a horse who's improving and maturing and developing. And that will allow him to stay, won't it? I mean, he stayed 3 miles as a hurdler anyway, so we probably shouldn't have too much doubts about stamina. But he ticks that final box for me on his seasonal reappearance. So just going to be incredibly tough to beat. It'll be a smallish field, won't it? Probably Conflated will be the one that might potentially chase him home. He seems to really have an affinity for Leopardstown, but there weren't too many of the others that I thought, oh, he's got something to worry about here. So it looks, dare I say it, a penalty kick for Galopin Des Champs.
Oh, goodness. Yes. And James, on Saturday, we also have the Irish Arkle. Lots of talent on display here. So your assessments of that race?
Yeah, this is very tricky from an anti-post stage, isn't it? Because what does Willie send? Obviously, in the market, he's got Appreciate It, Dysart Dynamo, El Fabiolo, Flame Bearer, Hardor. I could go on with all the horses he's got. Look, we know Segurhar's not going to run. We've got St. Roy's in there as well. James de Burley's in there. I don't think James de Burley will come down to this trip. But I could see Willie running at least 3 in here. It's just which ones he does put in. I would like to think that Appreciate It won't go for this because I think he'll go up in trip in time. That's my personal opinion on that, and I hope that's what happens. So you're probably left by looking at Dysart Dynamo, El Fabiolo, and at the prices at the moment, Dysart Dynamo has been backed in over the last few weeks into favouritism with El Fabiolo in, I think, around 3 or 4 to 1 in the market. If those were the price at the moment, I would play El Fabiolo. I think he's far too big a price if he does go for this at this anti-post stage. We don't know where they are compared to each other. Only Willie Mullins knows that. But from off the back of their hurdling careers and what I saw from there, probably Dysart Dynamo probably made a better chase debut than El Fabiolo. But I personally think El Fabiolo's got a bit bigger engine. So if he can brush up on his jumping, which hopefully he will do for that first spin round, I'd probably go El Fabiolo at this stage. But look, it's very, very tough. It's because we just don't know what Willie's going to send.
No, and Will, on Sunday we have the Irish champion hurdle where we have potentially a very big clash on our hands. So who comes out on top in this race?
Yeah, this could be one of the races of the whole meeting, couldn't it? Obviously, the Queen herself, Honeysuckle, will have probably 99% of Leopardstown rooting for her on that occasion, and she's got a little bit of a recouping mission, hasn't she? After she was third in the Hatton's Grace hurdle on her seasonal debut, but I think previous events or future events with Tahupu winning the Galmoy hurdle at Gorham Park, I think she's probably run just about as good a career opener compared to her previous seasons. I really do believe that. I mean, she beat Ronald Pump twice in the 2 previous renewals of the Hatton's Grace. And with all due respect to Ronald Pump, he's a solid, if unspectacular horse. Whereas I think the fact that she travelled so nicely into the race, I can see her, really sort of digging deep and getting back her crown here. She's obviously got a couple of new pretenders, State Man and Vauban, amongst one or two others, of course, as well. Sharjah might well potentially be in there. But I really do think you have to kind of take the emotion out of it and say, what did she do on her seasonal reappearance? And I genuinely believe it was no worse an effort than she has done in her previous 2 seasons. Henry de Bromhead's making some fairly positive noises. So my head and my heart both say that Honeysuckle hopefully will win the Irish Champion Hurdle.
Oh goodness, I really hope so, because like you say, I don't think she's never at her best in that race ever, and she just has come up against different competition this time. So like you say, I think that she has been kind of readily dismissed, where people are even talking about breeding shed for her. So no, yeah, I also like say, yeah, with my heart probably more so than my head for me, but I would love to see that all the same. And James, just to round up, looking ahead to the weekend, are there any other bets or any other races you'd like to look at?
Yeah, there is a few, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet. I think the Spring Juvenile Hurdle, I know it's short price, but I think she'll win. Lossiemouth. I'll be surprised if Blood Destiny did turn up here, and I can't see any of the horses in behind her, like Galia Marceau. Who else in there? Takao. I think Takao's probably going to run to try and get a mark for the Boodles. I can't see Galia Marceau reversing the form. The only one to probably look at in this race is Gust of Wind, running very similar to first run for Willie in a Grade One like Ilate Thomas did last season, but I don't think any of them be the same ability as Lossiemouth. So I think she'll win that. That £7 claim is just an absolute gift for her. I think another short price that will probably win, like we mentioned before on the show, Blue Lord will go on and win and probably become Champion Chase favourite. But if I had to pick out a nap maybe at this stage from an anti-post stage, and I'm hoping he'll run, I think in the first race of the Dublin Racing Festival, I think Goodland at the top of the market in the Nathaniel Lacey. I think this horse got a massive chance, and I do think Hidden Valley Lake won't go for this race. I'm not sure what de Bromhead's got planned as in for Saturday, but if you look through some of the runners he's had for the Albert Bartlett over the years, they've gone for a race at Clonmel in February. Milella Indo obviously went on to win the Albert Bartlett, went to Clonmel. Mona Lee went to Clonmel, then went on to the Albert Bartlett. So there's horses that he's had that have then gone on to use that Clonmel race ahead of that. So I don't think Hidden Valley Lake will run, which would see Goodland at even shorter price. What Goodland's done and the form he's set to date outweighs for me any of the other horses in the field, because you look at Embassy Gardens behind him on the run over Christmas at Leopardstown. Embassy Gardens was back in fourth. Last time out went on to win by 35 lengths. I think the step up 2 furlongs up in trip will be no problem for Goodland. And at 2-1, I think it's a really good bet. So yeah, that would probably be my strongest set of price. But there is a lot of short prices I think will go in as well, like it did last year.
Right, that is almost everything from us on this week's show. But before I let the lads go, Will, I do require one more thing from you, and that is your best anti-post selection for the Cheltenham Festival at this stage. Yeah,
okay. It's one I actually did back after the weekend's action, and it came on the back of the Triumph Hurdle trial result. With Comfort Zone and Scriptwriter, and it was a collateral piece of form line with Perseus Way for the Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle, 14-1 non-runner money back with William Hill. He doesn't even have a Triumph Hurdle entry, so you would imagine Gary Moore's plan is to go to the Boodles. If you look through his form, it reads very, very well. Obviously, he was close up behind Comfort Zone in the Juvenile Hurdle at Chepstow's Christmas meeting. He then went to Huntingdon and won the Chatteris Fen to win a decent graded opportunity. And he has a mark in about the mid 120s, mid to high 120s, which might be slightly reassessed, I guess, on the back of the collateral form boost that it's received. But even if he was low 130s, I still think he's the kind of horse you want for that race. He's tough. He's obviously got some quality. He's built up a level of experience, and it looks as if he is being aimed at the race. So Perseus Way for Gary Moore in the Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle, 14-1, non-runner money back with William Hill, I think.
That is not where I was expecting you to go. So that is fascinating. Like the collateral form. So yeah, going for the Boodles, or Fred Winter, however you want to call it nowadays, then for Perseus Way, like it a lot. So that is everything from us on episode 9 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill. A big thank you to Will, to Glenn, to James for all of their hard work. Thank you so much for watching. Please do remember to like and subscribe to William Hill's YouTube channel. Leave us a comment below. Any opinions you've had on what we've covered this week on this week's show, any opinions then for the weekend action as well. Again, thank you so much for watching. I will catch up with you again next week.